Today I'm going to share with you how I propagate hibiscus from cuttings. Propagating hibiscus from cuttings is super easy, and one of the reasons why I really enjoy this method of propagation is because you know what you're going to end up with. Any plant that you create by taking a cutting and planting that and rerooting that is going to be an exact duplicate of your parent plant. There are many plants that if you try propagating from seed aren't going to be true to seed, meaning that they won't be an exact duplicate of the parent plant. So that's why I really enjoy creating new plants from cuttings. To start off with, for hibiscus, you want to make sure that you take your cutting from the new growth or the softwood. That is going to be the part of the plant that is still green. It hasn't turned into that brown, woody looking structure on the stem. The best time to take cuttings from hibiscus is early spring up to early summer, and that's when the plant is going to put plenty of activity into creating that new growth or that softwood. That way you'll be able to have a nice long sample to take a cutting from. Ideally, you want to have at least 4 to 6 inches of that new growth. So you can see here, we have a good sample for our cutting. Now that we have found some new growth and we have a good cutting, it's time to prep our cutting. And we're going to do that with a pair of sharp, clean shears. We want to make sure that the base of our cutting is just below the leaf node. And you can see here, I've left the leaves attached so you can see that it's cut just below where this leaf comes out from the main stem. This section here is going to be the most likely to produce new roots, and that's why you want to have your cutting to start there. We're also going to remove all the leaves except for the very top few. So go ahead and use your shears to do that. Normally I would leave these 2 leaves, but because this one is so large and I know it's going to cause the plant to use a lot of energy to maintain that leaf, I'm going to go ahead and take that leaf off as well, just leaving that one small leaf. At this point, I'm going to use some root hormone and make sure to dip my end of my cutting into the root hormone. I'm going to tap it lightly to get some excess off, but you want to make sure that it is covered nicely with the root hormone mixture. Normally, at least in all the cases I've seen, it's white, so it shows up really well against the green. Now you want to make sure that you already have your pot ready with your soil mixture. For sproutlings from cuttings, I really like to have a 50-50 mixture of a really good, high quality potting soil, preferably organic with lots of organic mixture in it, and perlite. The perlite is going to help that drain. It's also going to help it distribute the moisture evenly. I'm going to go ahead and stick my finger in my prepared pot. I also want to make sure that this mixture is well moistened. I want it to be thoroughly moist from the top to the bottom. You can do this by soaking it if you wish. I like to use the spray bottle method and just keep spraying it down for an extended period of time. And also when you use your finger, you can feel to make sure that the soil is nice and moist. And then I'm going to place my cutting in there and then gently compact the dirt around my cutting. And I'm going to go ahead and give it another squirt with my squirt bottle just to make sure that the water helps push any of the soil that I may have missed by my light compacting so that it has good contact with my cutting. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to repurpose this grocery bag. This is actually a produce bag, so it's the really lightweight plastic, and it is see-through. That is important. And I'm going to create a little humidity dome over this. I want to make sure that there's plenty of room and that my bag doesn't actually touch my cutting. So I'm going to do it like that. If you find that your bag keeps collapsing, you can get little wooden stakes, little dowels, pieces of bamboo, whatever you have around, a twig, and create like a little tent so that it doesn't put any pressure on your new cutting. And for this, I'm just going to gather it at the back and create a little knot so that it's nice and snug. So your homemade humidity dome, even though it might look a little silly, it's really going to help level out those extremes between the dry and the wet. And I've noticed that that is a really helpful tip in making sure that your cutting puts all its energy into creating new roots rather than being stressed by those extremes. Lastly, I'm going to put this in a partial shade environment. I want to make sure it has some sunlight that it can get access to, but I don't want the heat, particularly here in Florida, to stress the plant further. So partial shade is the way to go with new cuttings. In roughly 8 weeks, it should have set its roots, and you can check your plant and see if it's ready to move on to a new pot. And that's it, super easy. My last tip would be, ideally, if you can get more than one cutting started at a time, that way you can guarantee success for at least one of them. And if they all succeed, well, then you have some more plants to share. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.